Good morning. Thank you for joining me in this morning mindfulness practice. I'm reading from The Power of Awareness by Neville Goddard, and the second half of the book is Awakened Imagination. Last two episodes, I went through Who is Your Imagination and Sealed Instructions. Chapter 3 is Highways of the Inner World. Now, this is not getting easier. There's a quote from Genesis 25:22 to 23 that says, "And the children struggled within her, and the Lord said unto her, Two nations are in thy womb, and two manner of people shall be separated from thy bowels, and the one people shall be stronger than the other people, and the elder shall serve the younger." Duality is an inherent condition of life. Everything that exists is double. Man is a dual creature with contrary principles embedded in his nature. They war within him and present attitudes to life which are antagonistic. This conflict is the eternal enterprise, the war in heaven, the never-ending struggle of the younger or inner man of imagination to assert his supremacy over the elder or the outer man of sense. This chapter is called Highways of the Inner World. And where Neville Goddard is going is how, we say we want something, but we act the opposite. And I'll just carry on with the reading of this chapter because the next quote is from the Bible, Matthew 19:30. The first shall be last, and the last shall be first. And John says, He it is who coming after me is preferred before me. 1 Corinthians, the second man is the Lord from heaven. Man begins to awake to the imaginative life the moment he feels the presence of another being in himself. There's something within you that wants to burst forward, but people who know you are going to hold you down and say, that's not you. You're even going to second guess yourself. That's not that's not me. That's not the usual. In your limbs lie twins. In your limbs lie nations twain, rival races from their birth. One the mastery shall gain, the younger or the elder reign. There are two distinct centers of thought or outlooks on the world possessed by every man. The Bible speaks of these two outlooks as natural and spiritual. Corinthians 2:14, the natural man receiveth not the things of the Spirit of God, for they are foolishness unto him, neither can he know them, because they are spiritually discerned. Man's inner body is as real in the world of subjective experience as his outer physical body is real in the world of external realities. But the inner body expresses a mere fundamental part of reality. This existing inner body of man must be consciously exercised and consciously directed. The inner world of thought and feeling to which the inner body is attuned has its real structure and exists in its own higher space. There are two kinds of movement, one that is according to the inner body and another that is according to the outer body. The movement which is according to the inner body is causal, but the outer movement is under compulsion. The inner movement determines the outer, which is joined to it, bringing into the outer a movement that is similar to the actions of the inner body. Inner movement is the force by which all events are brought to pass. Outer movement is subject to the compulsion applied to it by the movement of the inner body. Whenever the actions of the inner body match the actions which the outer must take to appease desire, that desire will be realized. So Neville tells us, construct mentally a drama which implies that your desire is realized. Mentally construct a drama which implies that your desire is realized, and make it one which involves movement of yourself. Immobilize your outer physical self. So he's telling us to sit still and imagine what we really want and put ourselves in that show, that movie, that image, that vision. Act precisely as though you were going to take a nap. So you're going to sit quietly in a meditative state. You don't have to sit in the mudra position for hours. Just sit still. Whether you're still in bed or in your favorite chair, in your favorite room in your home, or even in your office, sitting still and closing your eyes as if you're going to take a nap, and start the predetermined action in imagination. So imagine you already have what you really want. You're closing your eyes and you're imagining yourself in that state of being, in that place that you desire. A vivid representation of the action is the beginning of that action. So you see yourself doing what you would be doing when you had your ideal. How would you be acting? What actions would you be taking? How would you be behaving? Who are you surrounding yourself with? So he says, construct mentally a drama which implies that your desire is realized, and make it one which involves movement of self. Immobilize your outer physical self. Act precisely as though you were going to take a nap, and start the predetermined action in imagination. A vivid representation of the action is the beginning of the action. See yourself doing what you would be doing. Then, as you are falling asleep, consciously imagine yourself into the scene. The length of the sleep is not important. A short nap is sufficient, but carrying the action into sleep thickens fancy into fact. She turns your dream into reality. At first, your thoughts may be like rambling sheep that have no shepherd. Don't despair. Should your attention stray 70 times 7, bring it back 70 times 7 to its predetermined course until, from sheer exhaustion, it follows the appointed path. The inner journey must never be without direction. When you take to the inner road, it is to do what you did mentally before you started. You go for the prize that you have already seen and accepted. In The Road to Xanadu, Professor John Livingston Lowes says, "But I have long had the feeling, which this study has matured to a conviction, that fancy and imagination are not two powers at all, but one. The valid distinction which exists between them lies not in the materials with which they operate, but in the degree of intensity of the operant power itself. Working at high tension, the imaginative energy assimilates and transmutes. Keyed low, the same energy aggregates and yokes together those images which, at its highest pitch, it merges indissolubly into one. Fancy assembles, imagination fuses. So then Neville Goddard gives us an example. He said, here is a practical application of this theory. A year ago, a blind girl living in the city of San Francisco found herself confronted with a transportation problem. A rerouting of buses forced her to make 3 transfers between her home and her office. This lengthened her trip from 15 minutes to 2 hours and 15 minutes. She thought seriously about this problem and came to a decision that a car was the solution. Being blind, she knew that she could not drive a car, but felt that she could be driven in one. Putting this theory to the test that whenever the actions of the inner self correspond to the actions which the outer self must take to appease desire, that desire will be realized. She said to herself, I will sit here and imagine that I am being driven to my office. Sitting in her living room, she began to imagine herself seated in a car. She felt the rhythm of the motor. She imagined that she smelled the odor of gasoline, felt the motion of the car, touched the sleeve of the driver, and felt that the driver was a man. She felt the car stop, and turning to her companion, she said, Thank you very much, sir. To which he replied, The pleasure is all mine. Then she stepped from the car and heard the door snap shut as she closed it. Neville Goddard writes, She told me that she centered her imagination on being in a car, and although blind, viewed the city from her imaginary ride. She did not think of the ride, she thought from the ride and all it implied. This controlled and subjectively directed purposive ride raised her imagination to its full potency. She kept her purpose ever before her, knowing there was cohesion in purposive inner movement. In these mental journeys, an emotional continuity must be sustained, the emotion of the fulfilled desire. Expectancy and desire were so intensely joined that they passed at once from a mental state into a physical act. The inner self moves along the predetermined course best when the emotions collaborate. The inner self must be fired, and it is best fired by the thought of great deeds and personal gain. We must take pleasure in our actions. So he's saying to enjoy it, get emotionally involved as if it's really happening. On 2 successive days, the blind girl took her imaginary ride, giving it all the joy and sensory vividness of reality. A few hours after her second imaginary ride, a friend told her of a story in the evening newspaper. It was a story of a man who was interested in the blind. The blind girl phoned him and stated her problem. The very next day on his way home, he stopped in at a bar and while there had the urge to tell the story of the blind girl to his friend, the proprietor. A total stranger, on hearing the story, volunteered to drive the blind girl home every day. The man who told the story then said, "If you will take her home, then I will take her to work." This was over a year ago, and since that day, this blind girl has been driven to and from her office by these two gentlemen. Now, instead of spending 2 hours and 15 minutes on 3 buses, she is at her office in less than 15 minutes. And on that first ride to her office, she turned to her Good Samaritan and said, "Thank you very much, sir." And he replied, "The pleasure is all mine." Thus, the objects of her imagination were to her the realities of which the physical manifestation was only the witness. The determinative, animating principle was the imaginative ride. Her triumph could be a surprise only to those who did not know of her inner ride. She mentally viewed the world from the imaginative ride with such a clearness of vision that every aspect of the city attained identity. Remember, this girl was blind. She was blind, and she sat in her living room and imagined herself riding in a vehicle and imagined the city on her trip to work. And that's exactly what happened. She imagined it. She got emotionally involved. She felt as if she was there. And two strangers offered to drive her to work and home again. That's how your vision will come to pass. You sit quietly, calmly, imagining yourself to already be, to imagining yourself in your wish fulfilled. What is your desire? You don't have to figure out the how. The universe puts it all together. Her friend noticed the ad, and a fellow stopped in the bar and talked to the bartender, and it all fell into place. She didn't have to figure out who was going to drive her, how she was going to get a ride. She didn't have to worry or doubt. She just imagined that it was happening, and it happened. Now, people will scoff at this, they say that's just your imagination. But if we go back to the first chapter in Who is Your Imagination? Neville says certain words in the course of long use gather so many strange connotations they almost cease to mean anything at all. Such a word is imagination. The word is made to serve all manner of ideas, some of them directly opposed to one another. Fancy, thought, hallucination, suspicion. Indeed, so wide is its use and so varied its meanings, the word imagination has no status or fixed significance. We ask a man to use his imagination, meaning that his present outlook is too restricted and therefore not equal to the task. In the next breath, we tell him that his ideas are pure imagination, thereby implying that his ideas are unsound. So, this young woman used her imagination to pretend that she was riding in a vehicle being driven to and from work, and that saved her a 2 hour commute every day. How would you use your imagination to imagine that your dream was already reality, your wish was already fulfilled, and not stopping yourself by saying, "Oh, that's just in my imagination. That could never happen. That'll cost too much. That'll take too long. I can't figure it out." You don't have to figure out the how. All you need to know is, what do you really want? And as you imagine it, as you believe it's possible, as you give it up to God, to the universe, the energy of the universe will put everything together. People, circumstances, ideas all come out of the blue, out of the wild blue yonder, to fulfill your imagination, to fulfill the picture. Neville says, these inner movements not only produce corresponding outer movements, this is the law which operates beneath all physical appearances. He who practices these exercises of bilocation, being in two places at once, will develop unusual powers of concentration and quiescence, and will inevitably achieve waking consciousness on the inner and dimensionally larger world. Actualizing strongly, this woman fulfilled her desire for viewing the city from the feeling of her wish fulfilled. She matched the state desired and granted that to herself which sleeping men ask of God. What is it that you are asking of God? What is it that you want transmuted in your life? What would you have change? The law of perpetual transmutation of energy is where you put your thoughts and your actions follow, being there in your mind and then taking action from the place already where you want to be. The universe conspires to make it happen. So whether you say God or universe, source energy, infinite intelligence, your human brain is not going to figure out all the answers. Infinite intelligence. To realize your dream, to realize your desire, an action must start in your imagination, apart from the evidence of the senses, involving movement of self and implying fulfillment of your desire. Whenever it is the action which the outer self takes to appease desire, that desire will be realized. Neville goes on to say, the movement of every visible object is caused not by things outside the body, but by things within it which operate from within outward. The journey is in yourself. You travel along the highways of the inner world. Without inner movement, it is impossible to bring forth anything. Inner action is introverted sensation. If you will construct mentally a drama which implies that you have realized your objective, then close your eyes and drop your thoughts inward, centering your imagination all the while in the predetermined action, and partake in that action. You will become a self-determined being. Inner action orders all things according to the nature of itself. Try it and see whether a desirable ideal, once formulated, is possible, for only by this process of experiment can you realize your potentials. It is thus that this creative principle is being realized. So the clue to purposeful living is to center your imagination in the action and feeling of fulfilled desire with such awareness, such sensitiveness, that you initiate and experience movement upon the inner world. Ideas only act if they are felt. If they awaken inner movement is conditioned by self-motivation, and outer movement by compulsion. Joshua 1:3 quotes, "Wherever the sole of your foot shall tread, the same give I unto you. And remember, the Lord thy God in the midst of thee is mighty." That last quote is Zephaniah 3:17. "The Lord thy God in the midst of thee is mighty." God within you, as above, so below, as within, so without. Whatever you dream about, you bring about. Picture yourself in the place that you prefer. Get emotionally involved. Think from the end already accomplished. And all kinds of things will move to fulfill your desire. Everything will fall into place. As above, so below. As within, so without. Whatever you are emotionally attached to, whatever you're emotionally involved with, get joyously involved in the picture of your desires. What is it that you truly want? Sit calmly, quietly, get emotionally involved in that picture. Imagine the end result, and everything will fall into place to bring it into your physical reality. That is the law. Create a wonderful day. Thank you for joining me in this morning mindfulness practice. Enjoy your day, and I'll see you back here tomorrow morning at 7. Thank you.